You're listening to His Empire of Dirt by Pearlandpine. Chapter 23. Michael Afton has a happy Halloween. It isn't that everyone has been on edge throughout the week, but Mike definitely has. Clara comes over every single day, examining William's arm, and has him do stretches and exercises to ensure that all of the nerve endings are working. Thank God, Clara has observed, that the spring locks had only sprung half of the way. If they had gone down entirely, they would have pierced through bone, and William would have probably lost the arm. The sadistic, practical part of Mike wishes that the spring locks had gone off all the way, just as they did in 1993, because if Dad lost his arm, he couldn't build anymore. At least not as well. Bella has come over at least thrice to cook them dinner. "You boys don't eat enough," she scolds, pointing out that Henry puts too much of his time into studying and helping out at the church, and that William and Mike don't seem to have the urge to eat unless someone tells them to. "Christ, Bella, you're not me mother," William lamented at one point, to which Mike glared at him, and William added, "Thank you," under his breath. But through it all, he had a hazy look in his eyes, and Mike knew that William was, in fact, imagining that Bella was his mother, finally there to take care of him after all these years. Mike had done William the favor of going to the shop and collecting the torn journal pages, handing them to William when no one was looking. As if he was seeing them for the first time, William studies the pages, and after several moments of reading, he looked up at Fritz with a look of disbelief, embarrassment, and regret, and said, "I told you my head was a frightening place, Fritz." Never more in his time in the past has Mike thought that progress was being made. After a day of being relatively quiet and completely coddled, William returned to his normal self, quipping and groaning and scoffing. But there was something else there, too. He stood at the landline in the lobby for nearly an hour talking to Clara, asking her about circular insanity and other things that she had discovered in her textbook, calling her brilliant and lovely the entire time. He only ventured to the shop when Henry was there with him, and shockingly let Henry take the lead on much of the work, especially in the safety precautions, which Mike still cannot believe were not taken into better consideration, and he blames it all entirely on the naivety of the 50s and probably the drugs and success of the 70s and 80s. Mike has come home from work on more than one occasion to witness William and Bella getting high on the floor, while Henry slightly panics on the couch, babysitting them. Mike still has the horrible fear that none of this is working. The cyclical thought of, if I go to the past and change him, then I never go to the past, then I'm never born, so I shouldn't be here now, he should just already be better, continues to permeate through his skull. But the fear slightly subsides when William catches Mike's attention, waves slightly with an awkward, still ashamed smile, and Mike recalls William calling him his best friend. And Mike has to go into his bedroom, stuff his face with his pillow, and cry. Because he is so happy to finally have friends, and he is so distraught for William fucking Afton to be the best one of them all. Now, a week later, it's Halloween, and Clara is absolutely ecstatic, because William reveals he has never celebrated it before. "Well, I'd hide under my bed and eat wafers that I stole from my mother's purse," he said, and the sentiment was so horrendously upsetting that Bella literally started crying, and Clara uses it entirely as an excuse to dress him up, which he pales at, which in turn causes Henry and Mike to laugh. "We've got to be in theme, you know," Clara says, fixing her makeup, adjusting her dress. Mike once again proves his time-travel ignorance by completely failing to grasp the reference, and it's only after Clara calls herself Lucy that he realizes they're doing an I Love Lucy homage. I'm Lucy, of course, and Bella is Ethel, and Henry is Fred, and William is Ricky. William interrupting, "Who the hell is Ricky?" Clara groaning, and throughout the week subjecting the gang to doing the 50s equivalent of binge-watching the biggest sitcom in the world. And Fritz is Ricky Ricardo Jr. Then Clara laughs at the idea of William and Mike being father and son. And Mike's heart bangs so hard in his chest he thinks he could pass out. Especially when the both of them truly do look related in their suits. William has offered to be the designated driver for the night, mostly at Clara's insistence, but shockingly of his own volition. "I don't think getting high on acid really helped your brain out there," she said, slightly scolding, entirely worried. "So I think you ought to stay off beer and the like for a little bit." Only after intense supervision and a bit of suave convincing does Clara allow William and Bella to smoke pot together, and she constantly berates him for turning my good Bella into the biggest stoner at school, practically. Now, while Clara frets over William's hair before they go to the house party of one of Henry's classmates, Mike and Henry nurse their beers together. Henry is, funnily enough, a bit of a lightweight, despite his size. He's already blushing by the time he starts his second can, and panically he dodges William's gaze. "He's in a suit, Fritz," Henry mutters under his breath. And Mike wants to chuckle a bit at Henry's predicament, but he's still a bit reviled by the boys pulling a fast one over the girls. "Henry, really, bud, what are you doing here? With Bella and Will, I mean." Henry blushes even further. I need to know how I feel about boys, you know? I don't want to break Bella's heart. I also just like her so much. I need to have a family and I'm making excuses. But oh, Fritz, it's so wonderful to have two entire people think I'm handsome. He means for it to be under his breath, but he whispers it so loudly he might as well have been speaking normally. Does that make me a bad person? When Mike doesn't immediately answer, Henry buries his head in his palms. "Oh, I'm going down when I die, Fritz." Hey, don't say that. Henry reddens so much when William turns in his suit, presenting himself to Clara with a sly smile, that he turns to the sink and dabs his face with a washcloth. "Henry, I know you want to impress everyone and you want to be there for everyone, but every now and then, you have to think about yourself. And you have to think about how your actions affect everyone around you. Sometimes we fuck up, even if we didn't mean to." I know, but I guess I don't know. I mean, William said it. It's evidently natural to fancy two whole people at once. You ought to be candid with her, Henry. I know. Not now, though. I want to make sure William's better first. We don't need a big fight happening. Mike shrugs. Henry is right in that regard, at least. Oh, God, Fritz. And you know Henry is at least tipsy when he's willing to use the Lord's name in vain. It's so damn difficult trying to be three people at once. He'll struggle with it his entire life, and he will suffer for it too. Who do you want to be, Henry? Henry wipes his nose with his cloth and drinks more of his beer. After a minute, a smile breaks out on his face, and he turns to Mike and says, "I just want to be happy. Isn't that what everyone wants?" Then Mike sighs. Then stop being three different people. Don't try to save everything and everyone. Just be yourself, Henry. People will love you no matter what. But no matter what. He thinks of how William needs to fix and Henry needs to save. And he thinks maybe the former needs a bit more religion and the latter needs it nulled entirely. And how, of course, they fall in love with each other. They will always be aiming to rescue the other, in their own misguided, terrible way. Mike wonders if there's a time where Henry could have succumbed to the madness that Dad did. Because, really, maybe all it takes is one bad day. Especially with broken men with such drastic philosophies. I'll try. I'll be candid with her. I'll be happy. I'm gonna work on it. He smiles and clinks his beer against Mike's. Cheers, Fritz. You're the best. Mike blushes in turn, toasts to the sentiment that he doesn't think he'll ever truly believe, and drinks. Mike realizes that in the close proximity that Clara and William have enjoyed lately, the latter being taken care of, the former teaching how to dance, the latter showering with affection, the former receiving it for seemingly the first time in her life, that the both of them are becoming entirely separate of what they will be in the future. Mike always thought that Dad had been possessive, and not in a charming way, but in the frightening way. In the grocery store or in the park, Dad would grip onto Mom's hand or shoulder the second any adult looked at her, baring his teeth in a cunning, menacing way, as if to say without words, "She is mine, and you waste both of our time just by breathing in her presence." Mike didn't think Mom was so dumb that she didn't notice this sentiment, but instead welcomed it, the same way a bird with a broken leg depends on a human caregiver to ward off any threats and nurse it back to life. Entirely dependent on something much more monstrous and clever than it will ever be. The bird will be able to fly away, but never will, because the parasite has turned itself into the host reduced to reliance. Mom only ever raised her voice when she scolded Mike for bullying Evan. Other than that, she was quiet and pleasant, deferring to Dad for important matters, and she never deferred to Mike. Not ever. Mike thought that Dad and Mom were happy together, but in a way that was forced. Like they had ended up together and had to stick it through for the long run, because divorce was unheard of, and why would William Afton ever want to separate from something he owned and controlled entirely? And why would Clara Afton want to leave from someone that provided everything and offered her a subservient life that she seemingly took to completely and utterly? Now, though, he watches their dynamic change. Or maybe, more accurately, what it is before the both of them break entirely. Clara becomes more of herself, Mike thinks, as she walks around every room like she owns the place and curses like a damn sailor. "William, you're tracking mud into the fucking pad," she says, not unkindly, but with a slight roll of her eyes, and he'll say, "What a wonderful welcome," and she'll laugh at him and kiss him, and it's like the both of them take turns being the dominant one in the relationship. Clara, when she works to heal Will's arm and head, Clara when she's too tired, Clara when she discusses politics and work, William when he shows her his blueprints, William when he makes her blush with a layered compliment, William when boys on the quad look at the both of them together and see that he is the one holding her hand, despite evidently several biblically named boys pining after her. Mike wonders why the drastic fire that is present in William's eyes when he looks upon Henry isn't there when he looks at Clara. But he settles upon the belief that William both already thinks he has won Clara. Henry is a wild card. Henry just discovered he likes boys, is still chained to the church, and still needs a family, and is also a bit scared of her presence. Because now he has to share being both the center of attention and the director of the cast with another person. Now, instead of in the 80s, Mom is brash, loud and domineering, and perhaps William Afton will find it a sick game to see how he can break her down into what she will become, and in his twisted way, he will love her, because his breaking of her will show her just how brilliantly he can fix her. It makes Mike entirely sick, seeing Mom so damn alive. But the sickness subsides when Clara kisses William on the cheek, and he smiles upon her warmly, thanking her for her wonderful mind. Clara has become more of herself. William has drifted away from himself, not entirely, but at least a distance away. And Mike thinks that perhaps the future can ultimately change for the better. The five of them head to the front door, and William laughs a sharp sound like a hyena and claps Mike on the shoulder. "Let's go, son," he remarks. And of course, it's a joke. But the sentiment burns into Mike's veins, and he suppresses a shudder and thinks, no, maybe the past is the past, and his life will always be consumed by his father. Ricky Ricardo, love it! The host of the party, someone in the same major as Henry and Will, greets the five of them at the door, ushering them inside of the frat house, when Mike realizes with a hard swallow, upon gazing at the young adults of the decade, that he has never been to a frat party in his life, and it only takes him a few seconds to realize he's not built for it. He doesn't like the noise, the lights, the drunken students. His anxiety subsides just a tiny bit when Clara drags him into the den, and then the two of them, plus Henry and Bella, take shots off the counter. Henry grimaces, and Bella laughs onto his arm. William observes the sight, looking a bit like he has the fear of missing out, but he settles on a smile when Clara takes damn 3 shots in a row and beams upon him like he's the second coming of Christ. Mike and Henry follow Bella's lead and drink some more, and soon enough, Mike is drunk. Drunker than he had been at the quarry, and the dread of the only sober one being William fades a bit when 50s parties music, Mike wants to joke, take a shot every time Elvis plays instead of insert reference that teenagers in the 50s cannot understand, but of course he doesn't, he's not that dumb, reverberates all throughout the house. Mike wonders if this would have been his life if he had never gotten scooped, if Dad had never come back, if everything with Jeremy hadn't happened, if his life could have just been fucking normal for once. If he had a normal father, a good mom, would they have encouraged him to go to college, or maybe even take over the family business one day? Would his father never have berated him for being stupid, and instead of calling him brilliant, as William had when they were all high? William is twirling his drunk girlfriend around, and she's laughing so damn hard. And Mike wants to suddenly throttle the both of them for being so happy and nice to him. And then he wants to throttle himself for having such a horrid thought. Clara's tripping over her graceful feet, remarking, "I can't ever get tired of you, you British bastard." Then, too loudly, she says, "Aluminum." He groans. "Aluminium," he answers in a bad American accent. "No," Clara retorts, swatting him on the chest. "No, like a Brit." He says, "Aluminium." Clara laughs so hard that she falls onto his chest, and he has to support her from falling. "I love your head," she says, tapping at it, and the sentiment is evidently so absurd that William scoffs at her. She furrows her brow and punches him on his chest. "Don't laugh at me." "Don't you?" she chuckles. "I love your head, bastard." They share such a genuine look together. Clara ruining William's meticulously combed hair by running her hand through it. And Mike feels entirely lightheaded as he watches his mother and father fall in love with each other. And he feels so happy for Will. And he feels such a primal revulsion against his father for ruining such an alive person. When he turns to speak to Henry, he sees that he and Bella too are dancing with the rest of the people of the house. And Mike suddenly feels so horrendously alone. And his drunkenness overtakes him like a car slamming into his side. A hand traces his shoulder, and he turns to see a girl dressed as a witch. "Hi," she greets, and she's pretty enough, but he shrugs her off, leaving her with a sour look on her face. Because he doesn't want to deal with anyone. He doesn't even want to deal with himself. He heads to the counter and grabs another cup of beer, and swigs down too many. And after a few minutes, he's lost his friends amid the noise and other partygoers. The loneliness is intense, because he realizes that he hasn't been alone in 2 months. It's the first time in decades that he actually has people want his company. He's surrounded by people whose lives he hasn't ruined, or lives that haven't been marred by William Afton. But he will always be the person who ruined his own life and had it destroyed by his father. And he will always be stuck with his own company. He laughs at how pathetic it is. And he realizes he probably shouldn't drink anymore because, much like William, his brain is a scary place to be. He needs air, he thinks. So he stumbles around hallways until he manages to find a sliding glass door to outside. There are a few people on the porch, so he jumps down the steps, trips and settles on a patch of dry grass in the backyard, sipping his beer, throwing such a pathetic pity party for himself that he laughs miserably. The sounds of the party fade as the people on the porch go inside. And for a second, Mike doesn't feel entirely real. He just feels like one of the animatronics that Dad used to make. Because all he's ever been at his greatest is his dad's shadow. And at his lowest, the dirt that his dad had left after tracking it into the house. His hands bloody and his smile wretched. "You alright?" Mike jumps as a presence emerges behind him. William stands above him, smoking a cigarette, the reds of the embers the only light by the tree. Mike shrugs and looks at his feet. "Not a party person, I take it?" "I guess not." He plays with the rim of the cup with his thumb before drinking some more. "I've never really been to a party before." "I can't imagine why they wouldn't invite the most miserable bastard in the world to a soiree," William says with a snort, and when Mike doesn't laugh, he awkwardly grunts and shifts at his feet. "The girls were trying to teach Henry some dance when Bella started sobbing about how you weren't there anymore." "I got lost." Mike frowns at his empty cup. "Lost a lot, I think." "How do you mean?" William stoops low without sitting, as to not stain his pants, and then he offers Mike a cigarette. Mike takes it like it's the only thing anchoring him to the moment, and then he realizes it is, and the sensations immediately calm him. "Our brains are scary in different ways, mate," he woefully laughs. "I don't got a lot of nice thoughts going on up here." He flicks his forehead and falls against the tree. "Well, that's no good. Only room for one manic bastard in this group," William chuckles to himself. "Circular insanity, it says in the textbooks. Fancy that, being the definition of insane. Would you rather be sad or insane, Fritz?" "I think I'm already a bit of both." "Likewise." William huffs the cigarette. He grins. "Like father, like son, eh?" Mike wants to vomit. It's his words that are my thoughts. I killed Evan. I got punished like I should have, and... Oh, shut the hell up, Fritz. "You shut up, Will," Mike snaps. "Couldn't if I tried." William situates himself so that he's looking right at Mike, almost blowing smoke in his face. "You tell me about it, yeah?" "Why, so you can get off on the idea that we're the same? So that you can speak to someone who's just as insane and sad as you?" He crookedly grins. I hardly think you've ever spoken about it. You've just got your old man in your brain replying and telling you how worthless you are. I will not refer to you as such. Mike huffs. He wants to walk away, but the liquor compels him to speak. Dad loved Evan more than me. Liz was his favorite, but he loved Evan a lot. They hated all of them. I was a miserable little bastard, you know. I hated Evan so much for being loved more than me. Everyone was scared of Dad, so I thought if I could scare Evan, Dad would be proud. I put Evan between some machinery as a prank, because I thought Dad would get so damn impressed. And the machinery bent into his head, and he died in the hospital. Dad blamed me. Then Liz got killed in an accident, and Mom killed herself because of it. None of it would have ever happened if I just didn't go and get Evan killed. So yeah, William, I deserve to be fucking punished. William absorbs the information, sagely nods, and then thumps the back of Mike's head with his open palm. The biggest dolt I've ever met. Hey, Fritz, you were a kid. They're all gone, yeah? They won't want you to despise yourself if they were here. Dad would. Well, fuck him. He's a bastard. I know that, but burn him. Burn him over and over until he is gone from your memory. Fritz, the only person you know that is telling you that you are a monster is you. Look, you're my best mate. So I'm telling you now, you don't ever have to hurt anyone again. I'll do it for you, yeah? I'll kill anyone that gets in your way. And I'll tell you that you're a fool until you stop believing you're a damn monster. I wish I was. It'd be easier to live with myself that way. If I liked what I did, and I didn't want to... You won't die. I won't let you go that easily. How selfish is that? Be selfish, you fool. Take things for yourself if it makes you a bloody iota less suicidal. Take from me, Fritz. What could you take from me that would make you feel better? Your life, maybe. But William's not him. At least, doesn't feel like it anymore. Mike shakes his head. Right. Then pretend I'm him. What would you tell the bastard? I'd tell him that I hate him. That he took everything good in Hurricane and ruined it. That I hate him for ever bringing me into the world. For not telling me he's proud and that he loves me. And I tell him everything. Mike can't say any of it, though. His throat is strangled by his drunken sobs, and he rests his head on his knees, shaking. Don't let me drink anymore, he says instead. He can't see his friend, but he feels him, because William suddenly rests his hand on top of Mike's hair and whispers, I tell you I was proud of you. That's all we ever needed to hear from him, yeah? Did they love us? I tell you how brilliant you are, Fritz. If Mike squeezes his eyes tight, he can imagine William's voice is older. That he's in his bedroom. That he's just a kid that made the worst mistake of his life. Do you promise it was an accident? It was. It was just an accident. I know the difference, Fritz, between wanting to kill and what you did. We're not the same. William chuckles. You're decent, Fritz Smith. Be decent. Mike cries harder. So William hums a tune and wraps an arm around Mike's shoulders. And Mike falls onto his chest, holding on to decency like it's the meaning of life itself. I didn't mean to do it, he cries. I really didn't mean to, Dad. He gulps, thinking of what he said, but he feels William nod. Because right now, William is playing the part of Mr. Afton. I didn't mean to. I loved him so much. I was just stupid. I really didn't mean to, and I missed them. And I love you the most. I loved you the most out of anyone, and you hurt me, and it was just an accident. It was an accident. It was. I promise. I promise. I believe you, Fritz. It was just an accident. You don't want to kill anyone. You don't have an evil bone in your body. Hell, you're trying to help that William Afton fellow, and he's entirely a lost cause. Mike shakes his head. Don't say that. It has to be worth it. Well, think of it like this. If you can see goodness in him, then why can't you see it in yourself? Mike is floored by the relatively simple inquiry. He pitifully laughs while he shrugs. I don't know. I suppose I'm just not all that smart. Oh, don't speak for that. My sons ought to be brilliant, you know. My sons ought to be brilliant. Mike cries even harder, because everything his dad says is true. So he has to be brilliant. He must be. Because William Afton is always right. And it really was an accident. It was an accident. I was a bad brother, but I'm decent. I'm decent. I can try to do better. Drunkenly, Mike thinks that this might be the most important thing his dad has ever said to him. Not any of the horrible abuse he endured, but this. This moment, when his dad is his friend, and Mike for once isn't just not alone, but is sought after. Mike snuffs out the cigarette under his boot, and he and William make their way through the house as they hear shouts in the front room. Clara is there, red-faced, jabbing her finger at a particularly tall boy. You say sorry, she warns, her words slurring together. The boy folds his arms. Or what? You were perving on her, so you say sorry, or I'm gonna knock your ass out. Clara, it's okay. No, you say sorry. You're a fucking maniac bitch, you know that. The boy is promptly interjected by Clara curling her hands into a fist and rocketing it across his jaw, her ring cutting into his cheek. The whole room is silent. And then Clara starts bursting out laughing at the boy's incensed face, and it looks like he wants to try and fucking murder her. He appears ready to lay his hands on her until William shoves himself between the two of them, glares at him, and says, Try it. That your girlfriend, Afton? Fucking insane. And then William punches him on the other cheek for good measure, and the boy stumbles. And Mike mutters, oh shit. And people are cheering for a fight. And he knows his friend would be far too eager to shed blood. So Mike goes to William and whispers, we ought to leave. But then, a friend of the boy mistakes Mike for the instigator. So then Mike gets punched. And he gasps. And then William sneers and grabs the boy's collar and shoves him onto the floor and kicks his side. And then more of the boy's friends pour into the room, more than there are Mike and his friends. Nope, we're out of here, Henry says, and he scoops Bella into his arms and yanks William backward. Fuck you, Clara says with a hiccup and a laugh, and William grabs her and carries her like a firefighter out of the house, and Mike runs after them as they dash outside, some of the boys' friends threatening their lives. William rummages into his pockets for the keys, hastily unlocks the car, and before they're overtaken, they all jump in, peeling away. Clara sticking her middle finger out the window for good measure. The speed at which they are driving makes Mike want to hurl, but when he sees Henry's entirely panicked expression, Bella's shocked one, Clara's victorious one, and William howling with laughter, he slowly starts to grin, and he reaches up to wipe away the tears, but with a mildly stunned reaction, he realizes there are none. He's just smiling.